Could be a tradesies, though. I don't know if you're necessarily so worried about Jin Air picking up Ezreal.
Yeah, I
but
guess
you
so.
definitely don't want Def to get it, like you mentioned. Let's find out, as Pick and Ban has taken another evolution in now week 5 of the LCK. Last 5-day match week, by the way, guys. We'll be starting on Thursday next week, so little early scheduling update. Speaking of updates, Horn has been really impressive on LeBlanc, specifically his masterful baiting. He has been popping off on actually being the illusionist that LeBlanc was definitely first advertised as many years ago, and it seems like hyper-mobile carries are not allowed by Jin Air.
Nope. And of course, Deft losing his Ezreal makes a whole lot of sense. I want to see Kingzone bring out the Galio-Kalista combination, because you mentioned that Deft came to the Kalista late, but when he did make it onto the Kalista hype train, he was certainly the driver of it over in China.
Well, let's talk about this week's hype train, at least based on how last week ended and how this week has started. It's Yasuo. Yasuo bot lane, Yasuo everywhere. Grace is a Yasuo player. And Pawn and Deft will also be considering it. Yasuo is going to actually be banned on blue side. That is the new thing that's happened from about Friday last week. The Yasuo priority shot up as Shiv into IE or Shiv into Sterix become the new go-to build.
Also, I feel like you have to ban it against Kingzone as well, because Tucson is such a good Gragas, and that bottom lane is very difficult to deal with. Galio being considered as that first lock-in here, but that could be dangerous, because often you do want to pair it with the Kalista. Kalista Thresh still available.
Also, Urgot is up, and I think Urgot has been Rascal's one convincing champion. Is 4-0 on the Urgot.
Yeah.
And so you just give them a top lane that at worst is going to go even. So not sure I like going for Galio, which is not even really a flex pick. We might see it in mid lane, but it's kind of a support pick till it's not at the present balance moment. And with Kalista gone, or at least Kalista potentially being gone, I think Galio just alone was pretty risky. We'll see what they want to combo with. They could just look for easy to execute team fight here. Vladimir Kalista would be, we know what this comp is all about, even in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vlad going to be the first lock-in, could still be flexed towards root. We mentioned the fact that we casted earlier. Of course, the Vladimir in his hands proving to be quite scary until they lost, which is the story of most Jin Air games, to be perfectly honest. But what does Grace want to lock in for the squad here? Kalista would make a lot of sense.
If you don't take Kalista, Kingzone either takes it or bans it. It's one of those dualities here. And this would be a confirmation that the Kalista is at least on their minds, but not necessarily the first port of call, given that this could definitely be a Vladimir bot lane, after all.
Yeah.
How's Kingzone feeling? Because Kalista into Vladimir is, like we saw yesterday, hyper risky. Teddy was able to win on it, but kind of in spite of the matchup being very Vladimir favored. Kingzone see that, and we're going to see a Cassiopeia here. This is one that is probably going to be seen in the mid lane in our second series of the day, as Dove has looked really good on mid lane. Cassio, in this game, could definitely be in the bot lane trying to wail away or just follow around the Vladimirs early. This is a pretty good lane for the Cassio.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kingzone didn't find a win with this particular lane combo, but I've been talking about Def's Cassio for a very long time. The man is very, very good on this champion, especially with what we've seen in solo queue just recently. Wasn't able to make it work against Hanwha, but we'll see whether he can head back onto it for this game. Won't be up towards the top side of the map, but you're right, Pawn could be playing it in the mid lane potentially, as Silas is going to get banned away as the first ban in the second round for Jin.
And the first ban from Kingzone, though, is the Nocturne, which of course that dive pick into someone like the Kalista. So let's keep Kalista on the mind, even though there's two awesome dudes here that could be occupying bot lane carry spots. A lot of people practicing mid lane Silas, and we saw it on the Rift yesterday in some impressive performances, so don't mind the ban. On the Jin Air side, this is a curious one, because right now Sion can still lane against Urgot, but Sion priority is way down after the nerfs. He does his job, but noticeably worse, so because there are some cracks in the armor there, people have actually been passing up on the Sion recently.
Need to wait till the next patch before the Urgot gets the same treatment. As final ban here for Jin Air.
Do you ban the Kalista? Because you feel really silly if you don't, and it's picked, but you feel really inspired if it's passed up on. So wait and see here. Again with the Vladimir, maybe you should just go with the matchup being good and leave it open. The Fiora does relieve pressure off a top lane carry. We'll see which one that is, as Kingzone hovering over what we would imagine is a jungle Aatrox Griffin style.
Yeah, could certainly be that, but of course could be heading towards the top side. They could give Pawn the Urgot and throw things all sorts of different ways. Don't exactly know where everything's going for sure yet on Kingzone's side, but it certainly does feel like we've got a bot lane Cassiopeia and we're last picking for pawn.
Are we blind picking Yorick is my question when I see a Fiora banks. Fiora seems to be really good against Yorick and Silas and things like that. So I think Yorick will probably be the call here, and it'll be the Vladimir confirmed as a bot laner after all.
That was what we expected, of course, because of Root's performance, but good to see it confirmed here, and they've got, man, a lot of AoE power and then a lot of split push coming in from Linderung's Yorick, and we know Linderung is a pretty strong bruiser up towards the top side. His Darius was always what he got behind last season when we were seeing Linderung running around the Rift, so excited to see him on this pick, as Xin Zhao would be the Malrung special, but not going to pick it up. The Lee Sin here to be taken into most likely the Aatrox of Cuz.
And it's interesting that Jin Air kind of digressed from what we first saw, because you see Vlad, Galio, Lissandra, like, aha!
Yeah.
But then you see Yorick, who doesn't really want a team fight, and Lee Sin can obviously opt into anything, but 4-1, but a focus on actually fighting with the 4. Jinx we were calling for a long time. What will you consider, though? Because it's half engaged, half fun, and we're going left off. There's no pawn set in this game. Don't be silly, Atlas.
Oh, but it would have been so much more fun than this. Oh, man, we got teased and then ultra baited as the Jinx hover was also there. But it's okay. This is going to keep Deft way more safe, has been an option thrown out when there's a lot of threats, and there certainly are a lot of threats on the side of Jin Air.
But it's such a weird comp when you think about how they line up, because you say, okay, Yorick, 4-1, and you look at the Jin Air champ and say, oh, they have wave clear, but they're very short-ranged in the 4, and that can actually make some really weird spots where, given you have the liftoff now, Deft probably doesn't care too much in the 4. He's not actually under much imminent threat, especially if he goes cleanse or gets a QSS, and Lissandra doesn't have the guaranteed engage. Range at a premium on both sides, but not the full team fight wombo that we thought we would see from Jin Air, and yet a comp that can be better than the sum of its parts and can play 4-1. It can go a lot of different ways, but because they haven't fully shoved into one identity, you do wonder if it's less than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, it's true. But Jin Air certainly do have a lot of options and a lot of easy-to-execute team compositions, with Grace going in, getting his AoE down, after Root goes in and gets all of his AoE down, and then a Galio dives in on top. I mean, you can see how it's going to work, and Malrung has to get in there and start making things happen after level 6, get these kicks happening, get the skirmishes in the right position here for Jin Air.
And skirmishes is where you really love this comp, because even pre-6, you got Galio in the bot and Lissandra, that's pretty damn reliable on command CC for the Lee Sin to gank. Meanwhile, we go to the side of Kingzone DragonX, and Jungle Aatrox from Cuz, what I'm going to be watching in this game. You can do so much, and he does have good lane ganking assistance in both the Thresh and the Urgot on the top side. But Rascal and Cuz have been up and down. Do we find an up performance from Cuz in this game number 1?
Well, let's hope so if you're a Kingzone fan, but here we go. Game number 1. Fans still finding their voice here in Lowell Park for game number 1 of the day. But I do want to point out that Cuz is 100% win rate on the Aatrox so far and hasn't died as of yet. On this pickup, has only played it one other time and has taken Aftershock. Here on our blue side.
We already talked about it in Champ Select. We weren't a big fan of Urgot being left open on the red side when Rascal is 4-0 on that pick. And the only other multiple winner he has is Akali, who isn't even available anymore in many ways. So
she has been removed.
She has. Thanks to Riot Games for that one, changing the metagame around by giving the Evelyn treatment to good old Akali.
Yep.
Only 2011 fans will understand that reference.
The Evelyn. Well, I'm actually incredibly upset about that because I was a mid-Evelyn player back in the day when she was very different.
I think it's our first time to have Vladimir and Galio bot lane. The Galio can do a bit of a pushing help for the Vladimir. Not going to be any Frostmancy here, but it's a lane where Frostmancy is actually pretty damn decent. Or going into the upgraded GP10. Guys are wondering, we are on patch 9.3 with hotfixes enabled here in week 5 of the LCK, but because of the proximity hotfix, you can in a duo lane still run something like the Frostfang, as you see some trading at level 1.
Yep, level 1 still getting a bit frisky here for Kingzone. It means that Tucson will be able to win out that trade given the wave positioning, but sacrifices a bunch of his health bar.
And Vladimir and Mordekaiser actually don't have that much of a trade-off going into something like the Frostfang, because Vladimir just desperately wants that 10% CDR, right? And he wants it as cheap as possible. So given that the build is get a lot of CDR from the tree, 25%, and then just buy 20% worth of CDR, you're not actually paying very much for the Frostfang, and you're not actually trading off either. So we'll wait and see if Galio might actually get a bit more income after the first back.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, you sit on a feedage codex for a long time as the Vladimir anyway, and you just don't have to.
Why not a Frostfang, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's cheaper.
Well, we'll see whether he decides to grab it after that first back. Maybe wanted to grab the Doran Shield just at the beginning, and we've seen a lot of late Frostfangs coming in here from a lot of these Frostmancy players in last week, of course.
Yeah, we had an interview, I don't remember who it was, basically saying, yeah, it might have actually been Kingzone saying
I do remember.
That the first GP10, you know, the Spell Thieves gives so little gold generation, why not get some power at level 1 and get it later, as Root already actually took the Ignite down.
As Deft still has his overheal shield here on this bottom side of the map, as Kingzone are certainly flexing their muscles down here.
Root had to flash as well, notice, so that's an important summoner used. This lane actually reaches an equilibrium a lot earlier than you might expect because Galio can help with the push, but that's at level 5, not at level 1 and 2. This early in the lane is smart of Deft inducing to push, and they'll actually get a turret plate from the aggressive early trade.
Yeah, and Deft actually taking Biscuiteer here as well, so showing that he has gone into Inspiration Tree second. Very strange, because we often always see the sorcery coming down from the Xayah.
I think Deft
get a bit more sustained.
He's been one of the more creative players at getting over Awesome Dude or Mage bot lanes where you need to get lifesteal early. Remember that your lifesteal options are in kind of a weird spot. Right now, you probably go Legends Bloodline because it scales to 12% lifesteal, but it's so late that actually in the lane when Vladimir hits 5, if you don't have a Corrupting Potion start, which Deft, I believe, has gone on this champion in the past, or if you don't have Biscuiteer, you actually will heavily lose trades around level 7 onwards, so he's going this to dunk lane, and so far it's working out.
And actually Deft has been one, like you say, very creative in his rune choices, but often it is just to smash his lane. Straight up doesn't care about getting it for the team composition. He gets it so that he can have that performance.
Oh!
And threads the goddamn needle. That was amazing as Root. One more auto, that'll happen, and Tucson just delivers the lantern over to Deft. What beautiful play.
That was excellent from the duo of Kingzone, and it doubles down on Duncan Lane. Root never took the back and went for a shot this mid lane. Pawn trades well. Root will be able to teleport in. It won't be a disaster, but any extra gold on Deft is a good news story for Kingzone.
Absolutely. I apologize for my blasphemy, but that was just so incredibly close to hitting a minion. Tucson threads that needle so finely. And this advantage is just gigantic here for Kingzone. They do put in a lot for it. 3 summoners now on cooldown down there, but let's have a look at this one yet again. Oh, just over the wall. Really nice stuff there from Tucson.
Knight on Tucson, but he only takes a single turret shot. Deft able, with that last feather, to take down the kill. And that extra gold is actually put to very relevant use. We already talked about how Deft is about slamming lane. How about an Executioner's Calling and a Pickaxe first buy, thanks to that extra 400 gold from the first blood?
And think about the high value as well coming in from that Executioner's Calling. There are 4 champions here that have heal in their kit that can be utilized there, so Deft getting a hell of a lot of value from that one as Pawn loses a trade in the mid lane pretty extensively here.
And there's a 5th one because Galio does actually get some healing from
yeah, he does.
The Relic Shield into Targon, so that's the most facetious of them, but I'm seeing the value, Atlas. I'm definitely seeing it.
I certainly like it when you can build an item and it works no matter where you are on the map.
So have you played any Yorick Mori
I have.
Since the rework?
I have.
How awesome is the chime you get when you pop the maid? It's actually a really awesome, sad kind of soliloquy going on. You're always incentivized to pop that one out. It's kind of DJ Sona-esque, but you can't share it with anyone.
It's like the direct opposite of how incredibly loud the ghouls are when you hit the Morning Mist.
Especially in the spec mode.
Yeah, well, here's one of Malrang's early ganks that he's so famous for. A level behind Deft and Tucson here.
It looks like he is out of the brush, but that's not actually the usual visual bug. That's just the fact that his dance can take him way out. Here comes Nova.
Goes Nova. Yeah, does have the flash available, of course, as the only flash of the bottom lane duo. But isn't going to be able to find it, and that means Malrang's going to stop wasting his time, and Kingzone continue to put on the pressure.
So Malrang hasn't been able to find the inroads he has commonly in recent memory, and Deft is just doing incredible damage.
Yeah. This feels like Jin Air have nowhere safe to be. They're behind their turret, and things are already a problem.
And I gotta admit, I'm a huge fan of Kingzone approaching this so aggressively. It's great to see them actually trying to punish Jin Air. Whenever I see teams who are vying for top 5 kind of take it easy against Jin Air and say, well, they'll make a mistake, we'll chill out, and eventually win, I don't think that prepares them for the future. So Rascal takes unbelievable
has
damage.
To flash. Doesn't flash early to get out of that Dark Procession, and then just sits in there and has to blow flash anyway.
That is Yorick damage, and it is something you have to respect.
That was standing there watching the maiden slap him in the face over and over again.
And it was super effective.
It was super effective. That was like he was at his grandma's place and he ate the wrong cookie out of the wrong jar or something, and she just sat there slapping him. There's nothing that he could do in response because you're not gonna say anything to your grandma.
That sounds like an actual anecdote from your life.
Yeah, it did happen.
What flavor cookie was it?
It was a chocolate cookie.
That's fair.
Oh, no, it was an Anzac biscuit. I take it all back.
Oh, you have to explain to our viewers what Anzac biscuits are.
They are absolutely delicious, and my grandma's ones were the best, which is why I was going back for an extra one, and she called me greedy.
I really appreciate that I asked you to explain what Anzac biscuits are, and in true play-by-play fashion, no analysis of what's in an Anzac biscuit, just that they're tasty.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got oats, it's got golden syrup.
That's like if I asked you what kind of a game League of Legends is, and you said a fun game.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I don't understand what else you'd want from me there.
You know, I'm just regretting the question now. Thanks, Atlas.
You're welcome.
Feeling great about showing up to work today.
Do you like Anzac biscuits?
Yeah, I do. No complaints at all. I mean, Australian pastries in general, whether they're sweet or savory, are great.
Yeah.
We get to insult British people when we talk about meat pies. Speaking of insulting, insult to injury, Nova finds nothing.
He does, but at least they get the ultimate out of death. The Lantern is going to come in there as well as Dark Procession once again, top side of the map. I get scared of it now more than I ever have of that ability after Rascal got stuck in that baby cage for so long. And Pub Smithy gets scared of it because I might make another Grandma's Biscuits
yes,
reference.
Exactly. We can't have that, Atlas. I will not abide by that.
No more Anzac biscuits unless you're going to talk about what's in the Anzac biscuits,
exactly.
Max.
That's the rule.
Yeah,
that's the rule we're going to live by here.
All right. I actually find it quite difficult to explain what an Anzac biscuit tastes like. You know, I know what's in it, but it's good. It's better than, you know, saying that it's got oats in it and golden syrup. That doesn't even sound that great, but they are just fantastic.
I mean, oats and golden syrup are two starter ingredients for something tasty as far as I'm aware.
Well, Hemoplay going to be used just to get some health back here from Root.
It's Jin Air versus Kingzone. I think we can talk about biscuits.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And actually, we need to talk about your preference in Anzac biscuits as well, because this is a very important question.
I might not know. This is a lot of nuance here.
A bit soggy or crunchy when it comes to your Anzac biscuits?
So I'm going to give you an overall answer. I don't actually have an informed answer on Anzac biscuits at the ready. The only relevant anecdote I have is if you ask me if I prefer a freshly baked kind of soft Subway cookie or a harder one, it's always going to be the soft one. So soft cookie is kind of where I'm at. Also sounds like a great band name.
Soft cookie.
Yeah.
What kind of genre would that be?
Emo.
Soft cookies doesn't sound emo. It's not edgy enough.
I don't know, man. I'm down.
Soft cookies, the emo man. Brilliant. Tusa moves back towards the bottom side, just throws out a hook. Box is down here as well, but that means the stopwatch has to be thrown in there, and Malrang clearing out vision. Full demonstration to Kingzone that he is there, and Def doesn't even take the Lantern.
Malrang really behind the play this game. Look at the level advantage with nothing happening in the jungle.
Level 8.
Yes, and that's with literally no ganks really happening with either jungler.
He's now down towards the bottom side. Another turret plate is going to go down here for Kingzone at 11.5 minutes into the game. And Cuz is just happily killing a control ward in front of Malrang's face. Another hook is going to land. Root takes half of his health bar. And he's stunned up for so long. The Root duration put it at exactly the right time. And it just looked like Root had nowhere to go.
And this is kind of also what's happening with Malrang. Because while we've been talking about soggy biscuits, the problem for Malrang is he's got so many lanes getting hard slammed by Biscuiteer, Xayah, and the other kind of scenarios around. He's kind of fighting fires wherever he goes, but missing out on his primary objective, which is finding experience. And the moment that you're taking less camps, which of course have less experience on recent patches, the cascading effect is an experience lead that now is about a level and a half at best, and soon perhaps 2, 3 levels. There's, if you count the camps here, remember 4 jungle, 4 minions is 1 camp, or 4 CS if you will. We're talking about the better part of 6 to 7 camps difference between the 2 junglers, and that's really hurting Malrung, who at this point is a kick and not much more.
At the moment, Malrung has basically only been farming 1 quadrant of the map instead of half. He doesn't actually have his own side of the jungle, he has his own quarter of the jungle.
He can't even chill in the bush he was before. It's double control ward bot side.
Yeah.
The only control ward's top side for the Yorick, and that's well earned after the baby cage issue that really suffered on Rascal. So apart from that though, he's not jungling. Top side, he's definitely not invading an Aatrox, and because of all of that, we're watching these turret plates get cashed in further and further.
Another hook lands from Toos, and Hemoplague comes in, but that's a zoning Hemoplague if ever I've seen one, Papa, as Malrung's going to come around to the mid lane. Hero's entrance comes down, but Petrifying Gaze. He's in a great position. Dodges out of the way. Good cleanse there from Pawn, who wants to turn it here onto Nova, who is tanking up the turret. And even 3 men, not enough to take down the Snake Lady.
So much advance notice. The fact that Vladimir was 1v2 gave the spoilers to Pawn. He could flash away. The turret is fully cashed in. They have 2 plates in mid lane as well. That's 7 turret plates already claimed by a side of Kingzone. As a reverse, because it's a melee versus range matchup, top lane has no turret plates, even though Yorick's been playing well. And the Infernal is the insult to injury.
Yeah, and the real difficult thing here to really gauge right now, Papa, is at what point do we actually start getting excited about Kingzone's performance? Because yes, it's up against Jin Air. We're expecting a victory. This is one of the cleaner victories that we've seen, playing around win conditions that Kingzone like to play towards. Like the aggression of their bottom side, but they're not doing it just because their opponents are worse. They're doing it by putting down the advanced vision and playing hyper-aggressively around having those the lantern placements and everything for Deft to play super far forward.
The answer you're going to get is an unfulfilling one, Atlas, but it's the next time they play against better opposition, playing the same way.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if a team is potentially going to lose to all 9 other teams, you can only look at the internal consistency. Yeah, he's in the cage. He's not liking it very much.
Yeah, he tries to just stain over the wall, but unfortunately you can't pick up the whole wall.
But at the end of the day,
just a slap on the wrist by the grandma this time.
The normal analysis is, all right, if you just focus on Kingzone, they're doing the right things, but you have to pay it forward to doing those same things against a team that's not rooted to the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
So for now, at least, we should at least not be downtrodden about Kingzone mistakes, apart from maybe Rascal approaching this lane weird.
Yeah,
Is an approach.
going to come through. Speaking of approaching the lane, that is just a very dead Galio.
Yeah.
Already used his stopwatch. That's just a free one. No gargoyles for you, Jin Air. Now Kingzone looking to push down the mid lane as well. Very close to being able to take some more turret plates here, but Pawn had already taken 3 by the looks of things. Before this had even finished, Malrung not going to follow the Sonic Wave, and now they'll take the Infernal Drake as the first, and then Shelly immediately afterwards, Cuz showing that he's still pretty comfortable on this Aatrox, farming up an absolute storm, and will be able to get all the objectives in the early game.
And I guess we should discuss, just to find something to talk about, is the mistakes Jin Air are making. Because it's not all just these players are bad. We actually have rated individual performances from all players on Gen, kind of like BBQ Oliver's.
There are isolated moments where we've been happy about almost everyone, yeah.
What we should talk about is the mistakes we see from a squad that clearly is having communication issues, leadership issues, etc. The laning phase is ended, right? We know no longer is there a dual lane bot lane. Nova sweeps a ward in mid, so he's in vision, and he says, oh, I'll go to the river. Let's see if we can fight for this river brush. You might say, okay, it's not the pixel brush, so it's not the most aggressive brush to approach, but they actually have no map control in this game. We've been watching the control ward line being so advanced. It's actually too bold with how the early game has gone to face check that brush alone. That is the mistake made by Nova. He doesn't understand that after laning phase is over, that's not a free brush you can check with a sweeper and live through tell the tale.
Yeah. Well, he certainly learned that now after that face check. So Deft and Tucson move back towards the mid lane. You had Pawn moving up towards top side. Rift Herald yet to be thrown down just yet, as Cuz can't come over and give it a go right now, as Nova's going to come sweeping through yet again. Thankfully, Justice Punch gets him out of the way here, and Shelly not necessary to take down this outer turret. Kingzone just with too much control, too much power, and too much gold here at this stage of the game. Almost a 6,000 gold lead pre-20 minutes.
And with the early spikes here on the side of Kingzone, the fact that they have their items in the gold lead, any 4-1 plans that would have been enacted from Jin Air on paper based on the draft are now really behind schedule. We've seen Vladimir's ahead of schedule a lot in the last few match days, but today The Vladimir has been much more well held. 700 gold bounty already onto the Xayah. Favorite build of Deft. He's going to be really happy with the 9.4 patch notes that went live as Essence Reaver has gotten a buff.
Can go back to his Sivir, to his Xayah, who really did like the pre-Essence Flare Essence Reaver, as Linderung's finding himself losing these matchups, even with his girlfriend down here.
That is, of course, a reference to an amazing quote from Amazing Jay, where he said that the power of Yorick is in his girlfriend and his 4 children.
Well, Pawn is going to yell at Linderung, and Linderung's going to, sorry, Grace, and Grace is going to have to use his ultimate in order to get himself out of there.
The comment at the end was very funny. It felt like a clown throwing it afterwards.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing this week, and it's not necessarily game 1 of SKTKT, which was obviously really fun to cast, is we've had 2 games where an AD carry's done something a little bit different and then played to that adaptation. We were loving Teddy, who was going for the Hail of Blades, Ravenous Hunter, Taste of Blood, Kalista in a tricky lane, and then playing aggressively and winning trades earlier, and they played around Kalista's power. In this game, Deft went for the utility tree second to go Biscuiteer and get through a Vladimir lane, not fall off at level 5, 7, or 9, and they've played around Deft in a very impressive manner. So far, 2 teams have gone against the grain. As, that was quite the freak out there. That was a dude, where's my car moment for the Rift Herald.
Where's he going, dude?
Another reference that probably dates us.
Yeah, that does certainly.
And I just I love it when someone changes from the Mobifier or Pro Build's build, and then the team and the player plays towards it, because it shows what competitive play should be, which is every adaptation from the norm is an informed one that actually gets you a win condition.
And Deft now is making Rapid Fire Cannon Essence Reaver look like a power spike on this Xayah as well, because afterwards he parks himself mid lane, never runs out of mana, can throw all of his spells with Reckless Abandon, has that extra 20% CDR, so even if he has to use Featherstorm, it's back up relatively quickly. As Rascal, this isn't exactly the best position for him, but Jinair, they just don't have the confidence to walk up to a lonely Urgot and punch him in the face. It was only Root that was able to get 1 transfusion.
I think it'd be pretty tasteless to punch Jinair in the face right now. You know, they are already feeling pretty down, and you can tell with the sacks of gold that this has been a income inequality situation here. This was a country we'd have an inquest into the economic disparities going on, because everyone's got a bounty. The insult upon injury is definitely Urgot. Urgot having one in the Yorick lane, with how the Yorick lane has gone.
Yeah, just like after seeing Rascal getting trapped there, having to flash 1v1, and then just stands around early because he got so much more global gold. He got that accelerated Black Cleaver, and then Yorick just wants to go back to his garage and start practicing his music, man. He's sick of Summoner's Rift. He's not ready. Thankfully, he has the Pentakill skin, so he's in uniform. He'll be ready for the show, and he'll have plenty of angst when he's playing for his new band, the Soggy Cookies, or whatever you came up with.
Soggy cookies. Again, you called it soggy. Soft cookies are great.
Sorry,
soggy
soft
cookies. Are you a dunker, by the way? Do you dunk your cookies or your biscuits into your coffee?
Absolutely.
Very Australian thing.
Yeah.
Tim Tams especially, known for that. King's
you can use Tim Tams as a straw as well. That's the exciting part.
That is definitely the next level that Aussies love. But 2 control wards down for Jinair to spot there, which I appreciate. The steps gone into defensive play, but now those control wards are gone. There are plenty in the inventory, but none of them are in priority spots anymore.
How do you actually get to anywhere to put them down is the question.
You go with friends.
He's already figured out that he doesn't have enough friends to be able to face check any of this stuff, because Kingzone will just kill him where he stands, and they'll do it so incredibly quickly. And that broken stopwatch isn't going to be helping anyone right now. Sort of a black mark in his inventory right now after what was a couple of pretty disastrous face checks. Is okay, Linderung and his congregation here wandering through.
So let's answer your question. How do you put down your wards when you're way behind? You have to find a way, right? Because you need wards down. Have a look at the summoners here. There's actually a very relevant one. Pawn does not have teleport, and he needs to side lane catch waves. There will be times where you push the wave in the side lane, and you walk up, and there can't be as many enemies. Therefore, even with your fairly big item discrepancy, you can put down vision. That is something you can do that isn't risky, that is purely about side wave pushing, a very fundamental part of the game for the entirety of competitive play of League of Legends that gets you that vision. So that's the one way, given the current scenario, where Jinair can find some good news story, at least on a warding mission.
Yeah, well, you did see that they were able to actually get in there. No wards in the Baron Pit at the moment, but they do have wards all around the area. Dark Procession is down, but Linderung just taking harassment here from Pawn underneath the turret. And Deft and Tucson turn up, and they will just take this one down. Jinair have rotated on over, but they're not going to be there in time as Tucson trades back a hook for that Sonic Wave, and Malrung once again not going to go in. I don't think I've seen a resonating strike so far on a champion today.
I don't think he's aimed one at a champion.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, this has kind of been the duality of Malrung. Either he's getting everything done and then something goes catastrophically wrong. Not usually individually with him, but in the game, and it doesn't matter. Or he kind of just farms. And farming as Lee Sin is not necessarily a bad thing, but we've already noticed he's been a level and a half behind. And as we can see now, the better part of 11 camps behind the Aatrox. That's not all individually his fault. It's not that he just was in combat with the Raptors. They proved too strong and he tapped out. But it's purely been about the fact that he's been responding to lanes, never finding an opening because the synergy between him and his lanes or the lane spot hasn't been forgiving for him, and then hasn't been jungling topside around the Yorick, the only winning lane in the early game. End result is, just doesn't have much to show for 23 minutes of the game. Yeah,
he's been doing his best to try and save Root and Nova towards the bottom side of the map, but just hasn't really worked out here. Interesting to see Nova back in the roster, actually. I mean, it has been Root and Kellen for a lot of the time. We haven't really mentioned that it's been Nova back in. Kellen was on the Rift last time around, and now we do have the man with a little bit more experience here for Jinair.
They've definitely been playing Nova intermittently recently. In the match you and I cast together, he was playing at the start of last week. But I think they've just been messing around with support and sticking with Root as the AD carry, which of course the eye-opening thing for us. Still no Stitch. We saw him on a coaching booth look-in, if you remember. He was sitting next to Coach Han in the Jinair booth, but has not hit the Rift apart from one single best of one over the course of this season.
Yeah, he played Tristana as well, which is very interesting. Certainly with an old Stitch special, but certainly not exactly a meta pick at the moment.
Hey, you tell that to Reckless.
Hey, that's true, that's true. I mean, it's always a meta pick if Reckless
When does King Zone run it back?
Well, I mean, I feel like they can do it as soon as Cassiopeia feels like heading over there. That's where my mind's sort of at. And Pawn's going to grab himself a blue buff and do exactly that. With the Seraph's Embrace completed, mana issues are certainly a thing of the past here for the Cassio. Nova is going to get hooked. That's a real long-range one, as, of course, the Justice Punch is still going to take you away. Tucson decides not to follow it, not wanting to make an overly aggressive play here on the side of King Zone, as Cuz may as well just start up this guy because our Pawn's already available, and he's going to start poisoning the Purple Worm. And what are Jinair going to be able to do? I think the answer is absolutely nothing, and a Baron goes to King Zone.
They expect it now, but the control wards are down. That was a death rush in mid, and whether it is hoping against hope or giving up on the Baron, they're not going to get it. There's the Baron.
Well, there's the teleport as well from Root, but it's just a little bit too late. Slight underestimation there, and no Mountain Drakes on the Rift, but it doesn't really matter about Mountain Drakes when you've got a Cassiopeia.
I feel very whelmed by this game.
Whelmed?
Yes.
I know you can be overwhelmed, and you can be underwhelmed. Can you ever actually just be whelmed?
Maybe when Jinair play. That is the deepest reference that one person is going to tweet to us about, and you know what? Totally worth it.
Yep, absolutely. There's nothing about that moment that I wouldn't do again. Okay, back to the game. King Zone hanging around here in the mid lane. Pawn's going to take another dragon, and we're just waiting for Jinair to complete the rollover. I feel like this is the most slow-motion dog rollover that we've seen so far, but at least they can do it. My dog never learned that one. He was too stupid.
Wow.
Yeah, he was very dumb. He was very good at sorting through what he liked in the salad that my mum had just made for the family. He managed to eat all of the cashews out of it, as Tucson's going to do something real strange. Malrung comes into the backline, but the rest of his team's just going to run away. That is a special delivery of Elise and Deft. Grabs 100% of the kills this game. That is his third. And that was just something real weird.
So, when you see the replay, you'll fully take it in. Tucson actually cleansed out of a kick flash coming through from Malrung to get away. But what was more important is, out of nowhere, Malrung really had that moment that I think everyone's had. You know when you blow up at something unrelated to your frustrations?
Yep.
That is literally what just happened there. Malrung, after 26 minutes of watching, went in, he died, and now more people might follow him.
Yeah, well, that turret is going to be tanked for a very long time. Well, then, did not actually use there by Cuz because he wasn't expecting to die to that turret. Turret does fall down. Pawn's on the bottom side of the map, and it's a little bit of a whoopsie here for King Zone, but when you're this far ahead, it barely even matters. But it comes back to what we were talking about. How clean was this closeout going to be? Not super clean there with Cuz just throwing away his life, but Spawn underneath this turret. They should be able to break open the base here with 2 of these siege minions. And Kingzone, even with only 4 members, should still be able to take this fight to Jin Air. Already so much of the health bar done from Grace's root. Does still have the Sanguine pull. Hemoplague comes down, but Deft just not scared of this Vladimir whatsoever. Maybe he should have been, because that Hemoplague pop did do a lot of damage. Still, Kingzone able to take down this inhibitor. Malrung has respawned. They will be able to break open the base.
They break it open, Atlas, but I think the back is already broken on the side of Jin Air. Hopefully we get a replay of the kick flash, because the mechanics were on point, the decision-making not so much. Jin Air paying for the sins of the early game, where the inaction was really pointed by Cuz's experience lead and Deft and Tucson running away from bot lane. The inner turret should probably get the kill credit on that one, as the Ghouls were watching on as the inner turret slayed the enemy Aatrox. They'll steal away the red buff, they'll get out, and the gold lead, as that 4v5 happened, was 10,000 gold.
Yes, exactly. So that's a little bit of smashing them with their wallets on the side of Kingzone, but that is 1 kill away from a perfect game. We hadn't been tracking it, but Kingzone were very close, and Cuz is the one that lost it for them. So
watch the Ghouls here, by the way.
Oh, here we go, boys.
Yeah.
Got in there. I'm happy for Linderung, because he actually played the laning phase out very well. I'm glad that he got a kill to show for it.
I'm sad for Jin Air, because there's no silver linings for this game. They kind of loaded in and lost, is kind of how you're thinking about how this game is played out. I think the Rascal kind of missed playing the top lane was the only thing that went to the good column of Jin Air. Had already been praising Jin Air at never really having kind of those abject games where it looks like they were never in the race, and sadly, to me, this is the timestamp you need where Jin Air have really not been competitive against Kingzone. Yeah,
and I feel like Kingzone actually did take the massively right approach here against Kingzone as well, because Deft and Tucson, sorry, Kingzone took the right approach against Jin Air, because Deft and Tucson punished that bottom lane that has the least experience on the roster, the most that we have ever seen any team do against Jin Air. I mean, this lane was over by 5 minutes, and the turret was dead by 11.
All right, they're trying something. Unfortunately, it's scouted.
Grace, that's if you're trying to go for an engage, your claw went the wrong direction.
I think he understood that the backup was not there.
It's a bit of an example of what this game sort of means. Infernal Chain's not going to deny the claw, but the flash in there, Cuz trying to get some redemption. It's an early ultimate, but you can understand why he's doing it. Doesn't want to die just yet. Kicks back into the squad here as he is brought down into that passive. Bloodwell's not huge, but he is going to be able to Umbral Dash to get out of that base gate. The Maiden doing some work, but the only one that actually has the cojones to move up towards Kingzone at this point in time.
Cuz really feeling frisky, kind of unnecessarily so, but it doesn't actually cost his team anything. We see a lot of claws. Will we see an engaged? Nova's
We're going to not see Vladimir at all in this fight, as Nova's going to get pulled back. Good Infernal Chains there from Cuz as Rascal dives on forward. He's got a lantern to get himself out, but he's not going out. He's got the Gargoyle Stone Plate. He's the better Gargoyle of this game. It's a double kill for Deft. 8-1 is the kill score. And Kingzone are trashing Jin Air in game number 1. Only a couple of turrets to go down, and they're looking to fish in this fountain before we finish this one off. Nexus turret number 2, and now the Nexus to fall.
We had enough. We're zooming out early because we know it's all about the aplomb